Let us now dive into the producer profiles of these two wines. I'm going to give you details about who they are, who make these wines, with the region, the grapes, the winemaking styles, things to keep a note of for the next time you do a wine tasting. Okay, so let's uncover the stories behind those bottles. What did we just drink? What did we like? So the first wine, the Godello, was a wine from the west coast of Spain. Right north of Portugal, we're in the Douro Ribera Sacra, which is very famous for having that Galician climate where there's more of that Atlantic Ocean mist and cooling effect. But what's really interesting in this area is that the winery itself is up in a very high altitude region. So just to recap what the wine was, right, the winery is called Bodega Regina Viarum. The wine was 100% Godello, which is a white varietal native to the region of Ribera Sacra, which again is a DO of the Galician region in the western Spain. So this winery is family owned and operated by Gómez Araujo, who in 2001 built a vineyard at the very top of these mountains in Ribera Sacra. In the subzone of Amandi, which is actually quite famous for a rich history in monastery cultivations, with native grapes in the region that date back to the 15th century. Now the winery name itself does sound Latin, and the Latin translation of Regina Viarum actually means Queen of the Road. So this family has been taking care and respecting the land that they came from by using organic practicing in the vineyard and in the cellar. Now, they're not certified, however, they are using those philosophies in the vineyard and the cellar, including modern energy-efficient facilities, no harsh chemical usage, and very light fining techniques. As you'll see in the screen in front of you, this is a view of what the winery looks like in Ribera Sacra. Again, towering over the River Sil, which is quite famous for all of the canyons that were developed several hundred years ago, and that altitude gives them retained acid in the grapes as the cooling effect in the day helps the grapes ripen longer. You'll also see that these steep hillsides are about 45-degree angle at a slope. So there is no way you can do any machine harvesting. So everything is done by hand, all manually in the vineyard. So we talked about how difficult the winemaking process is on this property because of the location at the top of the mountain. We also talk about how everything is hand-picked and hand-harvested, so you can imagine that the price goes up when we talk about this. And this winery only has about 9 hectares in total, right? So the Godello that's coming into this wine is only from a small 3-hectare plot with low yields and younger vines, as they are about 20 years old, which 20 years old is not that actually young because wineries have to replant vines often, and they have to wait a minimum of 3 years before fruit is viable to make a wine. So 20 years is all relative. Now we talk about the River Sil, which you saw in the photos prior, and that actually gives the region very slate and granite-like soils, which is important because it provides a really good draining solution for the vines in the vineyard, which is what they need in order to dig really, really deep down and get different nutrients and provide biodiversity for those vines. So this Godello, just to wrap up, was a native yeast fermentation, actually put in French oak for about 4 months to age for a little bit longer and adding richness and depthness to the wine. There's light fining and filtration to provide that bright complexion with minimal sediment. And overall, while it doesn't have a certification, they are an organic practicing vineyard, and we really hope you enjoyed this wine.